my friends, I'm Rick. You may or may not be, right? I got little Missy sitting over here in the corner, and you know, I grew up not needing to have glasses, and it wasn't until I got into my mid to late 40s that I started to have them. I couldn't read very well anymore without them, and then progressively, I started out with the reading glasses, and then got a prescription, and now, on my fourth version or whatever. Even now, I still can't the idea that the stupid bifocals that just you sit here with your head crunked up like this trying to do anything, it just drives me batty. All right, and I've been trying to get my damn uh, eye doctor guy to get my understanding through that. I don't want to. I just want a straight reading set of reading glasses. God damn it! And I don't want to spend $500 for it. Meanwhile, just sitting there and then just trying to walk and do shit with it. Yeah, right. Anyway, so one of the things that always that really cheeses me off about politicians and politics today, and a lot of other things in social media too, is the fact that they treat you like you're a total moron. That a lot of things happen. Politicians say a lot of things on video, on live television, on live video, on recordings. Quite a few of them make the recordings themselves and post them on social media just like everybody else. Right? And then they turn around and come back, oh, I didn't say it that way. Or you took it out of you took me out of context. Okay. So what they're trying to tell you is something you saw with your own eyes was somehow bullshit, somehow not what it was. It simply could not be what it was because you're not seeing it right, or it's a lie. Okay, so when I came home from work and I hadn't heard any of this Jan 6 bullshit had been going on until I get through the front door, and my wife says they're trying to take over the state, they're trying to take over the country, and I'm like, what? And we flip on the news, and lo and behold, there they are, and you can see them hang Mike Pence and a noose in the gallows on the damn commons, and in front of the building, appear to be thousands of crazy people literally charging up into the Capitol building at that point. And then they turn around and tell you it was just a bunch of tourists. Really? Really? Oh, yeah, America, come on. My friends and family and strangers and total fuck you people and the rest of the world that, out here that we run into are, how do you not see the blatant obvious truth in front of your freaking eyes? I mean, the shit's there. When you think of tourism, they talk about just tourists. It was just an enthusiastic crowd of tourists, right? So I don't know about you, but when I think of tourists, I think of like crowds of people here holding cameras and gawking and pointing at stuff and all being quite peaceful and orderly. I have, just like you, I have attended many public events in my lifetime. I go to the Iowa State Fair every damn year, and you can't get a more crowded location in Iowa than the State Fair. In a given day at the fair, it's going to be brutal days, but it's orderly. Orderly. And there's a good reason for that, in part because everybody's there to have a good time. Most people are not there to cause a problem, nor are they expecting to be incited into causing a problem, let alone a riot. And we have seen enough riots in recent years across the United States. Even here in my hometown of Des Moines, Iowa, when the Black Lives Matter stuff had gotten at its peak, we had several nights of protests and marchers stomping around the city, and a mob tried to ransack the Merle Hay Mall, which was, my mind was, why? Like a lot of malls, that one's not doing so hot. If you're going to ransack a mall, go to the really rich one on the other side of town. It's funny how that happened. Most of the damage and quote rioting and stuff took place in some pretty economically challenged areas, as opposed to, say, the really upscale, wealthy areas that are much further out in the suburbs now. All because the buses don't run out there, and it's much harder to get a big crowd of people out there. agitated enough. Not to mention the fact it's a much further walking distance. Things are spread out. The further out you go than suburbs, the more stuff is spread out. The more parking lot space and things like that, green space, you can't help but notice it. Or crowds at your favorite theme parks, and they have tours of the White House and the Capitol building and all kinds of other public works every day, or mostly every day when things are going like it's supposed to. And so they get tens of thousands of tourists daily in Washington, D.C. They know what a tourist crowd looks like too. And I'm talking specifically to you fine MAGA people who have disconnected yourself from all sorts of reality. And in fairness, y'all were disconnected from reality a long damn time ago. It's just you finally found some crazy bastard who potentially wrecked the world, and you attached yourself to him because you're stupid. You honestly are stupid. MAGA people, you no longer, I don't call you Republicans anymore, because you've sullied the term and the concept of the conservative Republican fuck-ass party as it's supposed to have been for last 50 damn years. It is not whatever the hell it used to be. I was never a big fan of it in the first damn place. There's a lot of the selfish megalomaniac BS that goes on in the Republican Party, and always has, and that's part of the charm of the party. Right. But you got a bunch of them going, oh, well, that's just, even our vaunted Speaker of the House got himself in a bit of a bind when he started releasing scrubbed images of the Jan 6 tourists to show just how polite and quiet the crowds were and how little violence there was. And I grant you, common sense, which is something we seem to lack anymore in this country. We used to have a lot of common sense. It used to come in buckets in this country, but not so much anymore. I don't know why or how that has become suspended, or where it's gone. Most people still have, when it comes to their personal lives, if most people acted the way they do towards their politics today in their personal life, how effective do you think their personal lives would be? Seriously, how much are they going to do? So we got people that will behave in one way, and then when in other convention they behave completely different. So therein starts the rub. You have a problem on the mental side of things there, because you're trying to either disconnect yourself purposely and willfully, or because you don't realize you're being disconnected by somebody else, or a whole lot of other people who are fire hosing you a lot of bullshit and lies and telling you it's the truth and sunshine, and you're drinking it up. Sunshine is going to rot your stomach and kill you, because these people are not your friends. At the end of the day, they get in power. They don't give a damn about you at all, MAGA. Not one lick. Just the top people care about themselves and being in power. It's a means to an end. And if you think that's the real motivation for a lot of those people who are supporting Trump on the political level, on the higher level of things, most of them are hedging their bets. Yeah, there's some aspects of the trade where they're scared of him, and that damn right. They are scared of him. More important, they're scared of lacking that support when they need it to stay in office themselves. So they kind of in a bad bind. But that just allowed the window to open up for us to get a really good look at the real bad characters that populate Congress today. And to be disingenuous at best to sit there and suggest that there aren't that many, there isn't problem politicians on the Democrat side, because we damn well know there are. All right, nobody who plays the stock market gets a 38% return on their investments, unless you're a politician. 38%. The Wall Street people are rolling over and screaming right now and pulling their hair. 18%. Crenshaw, 18%. Hellaciously good turnout. So he made $18 on every $100 he invested last year on his stock portfolio, which by rights is 10 times higher than the average person who plays the market, let alone the 20 times higher than the percentage of people who are invested as part of a big group thing that invests, their retirement. I don't know any of that stuff. I'm not a economic guru of any sort, but I can read the stuff. It's not hard to see it. And when you put it out in nice, colorful graphs, it's blatantly, hellishly, corrupt. You know, so did the riots take place? Was there an insurrection? By definition of the term, was there an attempted insurrection at the Capitol building of the United States on January 6th, 3 years ago? Was there? A whole lot of people sit there and say there wasn't. Now, I don't know well, I do know. I know they're lying, right? You know they're lying. These are images taken by independent sources. Not Capitol released information, not stuff that was on the the Capitol security cameras or the Capitol security body cameras that a lot of these fellows were wearing, but shot by people like you and me or the press, people who were there at the party, right? Yeah, sure. Look at the comparison between the top and the bottom picture. A picture's worth 1,000 words, MAGA. My fine MAGA friends. And you can argue, well, they're fake, they're altered. Well, how is it then that there's thousands of these, literally tens of thousands of photographs on the internet from that day, shot by the people who were there, shot by many of the people who participated in the insurrection? Now, were everybody present intending to do this? Probably not. There was a tiny small core of hardcore people who were hell-bent on attempting this. Although, let's be honest, y'all fucked up. Now, from what I understand, it's coming out now, the details, they're always in the details. You only had about 2 weeks' notice to plan anything. So perhaps, just perhaps, the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers would have been far more effective had they had 2 or 3 months to plan on this, or a year. Perhaps, maybe, just perhaps, if, thankfully, let's be honest, thankfully, none of Trump's people at the time were savvy enough to start plotting this six months or a year in advance, knowing full well this was what we were going to pull. See, there goes the argument. A lot of people sit there and say, well, it wasn't an insurrection because it wasn't premeditated. It wasn't plotted out. And there's some truth to that, because I think a lot of this was just impromptu. It just kind of built on the energy of previous bullshit, and it got out of hand. I honestly think a big part of that for a lot of these people was that it got out of hand. It got out of hand so much that we actually have images from the crowd of people at the damn event. You see the guy in front of the camera, the person who's holding the camera, there's a person in front of them holding their own camera up, taking a selfie. Tell me that's not what that dude's holding in his hand, or that gal's holding. Maybe she's not. Maybe I'm seeing it wrong. What about this person to in front of her? She looks like another person holding the damn camera selfie up, take pictures. So y'all took these pictures. Not the government, not the FBI, not the CIA, not Antifa. Unless, of course, this person taking the camera belonged to one of those organizations. Man, how do we prove they worked? But from what it sounds like, better than half the people that's been arrested so far are actually well-to-do in the upper class or wealthier in the working or the management class in our country. We got CEOs, we got hedge fund managers, they've got lawyers and government officials and officers of the law. And who's to say that there weren't off-duty members of the FBI participating? Now, think about that for just a second. Just a second. Had they, woulda, coulda, shoulda, had they had time, and had they had a year to plot and plan, they could have found more than enough sympathizers. They were already getting several core groups of militias involved when you get the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys. So what if they had actually planned an actual armed insurrection? If they'd actually came armed with weapons, like those fine, convenient, semi-automatic, often altered automatic assault rifles that we love so much in this country. just yesterday, day before yesterday, we had a mass shooting of sorts. It's sad when you look at it happened in the Perry High School, Perry, Iowa. The a sixth grader, 12-year-old boy's dead. The shooter is 17. He's dead. This time he had a pump action shotgun and a small pistol. It apparently shot 5 or 6 rounds. The principal took the brunt of it. He's in critical condition. He's stable, but still critical. He was in surgery all day yesterday, but he came out of pretty good shape. It sounds like he put himself physically in between the shooter and as many students as he could. And that man needs to be celebrated the rest of his damn life for that sort of thing. I also want to give kudos to the various law enforcement agencies that showed up. I'm not a fan of law enforcement for a number of reasons, and mostly personal, but at the same time, I am quite aware of just how important that they are and what they do and the services they provide. I am also aware of the double standard because it's always been that way. For a lot of these people that are on that thin blue line, they do that at a cost because they're no longer really totally accepted in the society as a normal person. There's always that hint of consternation and fear and worry whenever you're standing next to somebody you know is an officer of the law. You just can't, even when you're not doing anything wrong, you kind of twinge, you get a twitch, and most of us do feel it. And I'm sorry for that. But as for these people, they wasted no time. The first ones that arrived on the scene went right straight into the building. They went straight into the school and began a search. By this time, the student the shooter had committed suicide, and thankfully hadn't. It took place early enough in the morning that the main student body had yet to arrive. The school buses were just coming to the school, were en route when this took down. So there was it was just the early morning crowd, the ones in there for their the early breakfast crowd, and people whose families dropped their students off to school. So there was a lot fewer potential casualties, thankfully. There were 4 children that were wounded, 1 killed, and then the principal, of course, badly shot up, and then the shooter. So there were 7 people involved, 2 deaths, and you have to count the shooter. A lot of people don't want to do that, but he shot himself. I don't care. He was still a kid. He was a teenager with a lot of problems, and we may never know what the problem is. And yet, right on cue, almost within the hour, our governor was on the scene, getting her cameo appearance, and of course we got a bunch of wannabe Republican presidents bouncing around Iowa this week, and as quickly as they could, they showed up or got their 2 cents worth in. And there's one fine individual who's upset. It wouldn't happen if all the teachers in the school were armed. If our school was like an airport where you couldn't get in and out the front door, any of the doors, without being searched and scrubbed and vetted and whatever. That's what they want. The party of least management, of least government interference, wants to bury you under government interference and government management. Funny how that works. How everything they say that they're against, they support. And everything that they support is they say they're against. And it's blatantly obvious. So, over here on the left, we see, on my left anyway, we see somebody holding a baton up and he's beating on somebody. Meanwhile, other people, the members of the crowd, are taking pictures. I've seen that scene. I got home and they've replayed it on the national news over and over and over again, and I saw it with my own freaking eyes. Yeah. So once a lot of folks got inside, they became tourists because at that point they were probably a bit shocked they were inside. They really didn't know what they were going to do. The lion's share of people that participated or were present there weren't there to take down the U.S. government. They weren't really there with the intentions of storming the building and doing a bunch of damage and inflicting pain and suffering and some deaths. because they're culpable of the deaths. We had several die. We had a fellow die of a heart attack the day after because he was overwhelmed by the situation there. And you can say, well, he was going to have a heart attack anyway. Okay, make that argument. What about the lady who got to as far as the door of the main chamber and got shot for her trouble? Well, the security of the freaking security shouldn't have shot her. Oh, so they should have just let her in so they could go and lynch Mike Pence? Is that what they should have done? You think that crowd have been okay with Nancy Pelosi? You don't think they wouldn't have, they wouldn't have, okay. So that would have been okay. At what point does that stuff become tourism? How often do we see tourists at Disneyland trying to storm, the frickin' fantasy castle to take Princess Penelope hostage? Or whatever. I'm just asking, when was the last time that happened? In the history of America, in 250 years, most of that period of time, they're being open tourists for the public to come into the Capitol building and the White House. Have we ever had that happen before? At any point, did any of the big mass gatherings outside on the Commons, outside of the Capitol building and the White House, turn into riots of this nature? And they've had some pretty massive gatherings, right? How can you sit there? How can you, MAGA? I have to know. How can you honestly sit there and say that this shit didn't happen when you know it did? You're rooting for this stuff. This is the very stuff you insist on holding up as being righteous and justified. So it did happen. Exactly the way it's being said. It wasn't a bunch of tourist shit. So when you get petty manipulation by, the Speaker of the House's office trying to blur the images on the videos, well, I found, isn't it funny that after that came out, that the office Speaker has not released any more videos of any sort? Wonder why that is. Wonder how many of those videos got accidentally deleted or lost, or corrupted. It's terrible how stuff, funny how you would think that important things like that they would have backups for. You don't have backups for that stuff? Hey, Speaker Johnson, do you think that other people that handled those videotapes before you got your hands on them didn't keep backups? Pretty sure that maybe you don't have the exact copy, the only copy of the damn videos that were in the inventory, because that's public property. That's owned by the United States taxpayer, not Congress. So by rights, even if we don't get to look at them, that don't mean you get to destroy them or alter them, because somehow I think that's messing with government property and altering government record. I'm not a lawyer, not a specialist in any of that crap, my friends. You tell me. Still, once again, I have to ask, how is this tourist? How is this bullshit tourism? It's no different than when I watched the press conference that President Trump did when they were trying to find some vaccine issues for the COVID, and out of the blue he's like, well, he starts talking about injecting yourself with bleach, and how well, we'll have to look into that. Yeah, that sounds like a thing, we should do that. And what's her face, and I can't think of her ugly ass name's face now, who is the head, his head doctor mouthpiece at that point. She's got a horrified look on her face. She's not trying to correct him. She's not trying to dissuade him. She's not trying to say, oh wait, no, nobody should ever bleach. Never ever inject yourself with bleach. She didn't say any of that, but you could see on her face she was just horrified by the thought. And so later people come back and they tried to justify Trump's statement by sitting there and say, well, he was just joking. He wasn't serious. No, I saw his expression. I saw his face when he said it. The man was serious. See, you can spin it around all you want later, but for those 40-odd million people who are watching the TV at the moment he said that, That's ingrained in our brain. And all that common sense that the average American is imbued with in spades kicked in and goes, what? You want me to do what? That's like pissing on an electric wire. You really want to piss on an open electric outlet to see if electricity, if your pee can conduct electricity? You're going to be in a really shocked to find out just how fast that can be proven. Oh, it doesn't work that way. The fuck it don't. I watched my cousin piss on an electric fence twice and get shocked both damn times. So yeah, it's a thing. And I would not, on an open electrical wire, you just actually toast yourself. Now, seriously, ask yourself though, if this actually is the truth, and many of us seen it, and many of you who participated in it took your very videos and photos that proved, more than proved, that this was a violent thing. Perhaps what was intended to be a peaceful gathering had been ramped up and fired up by enough people that it turned into something else, and it devolved from there. And anytime you got a gunshot going off, that's something they never talk about. You never hear them talk about this in the media very much, which I think is crazy. How many gunshots have there been in the Capitol building? How many actual guns have gone off inside the halls of American political? I'm just asking. I know there was a duel fought once. Not sure it was fought on the floor. I think it was. So there may have been gunfire before on the House floor, or in the House chamber, because that guy shot that gal through the door of the House chamber. We don't talk about that. How often does that happen when you're on a tourist trip to Disneyland? How often does Goofy shoot your ass through a door because you're too enthusiastic as a tourist? Just saying.
It just irritates me to no end.